So in this video, I want to talk about the experiments that Jane Elliot did with her third graders. And the last couple conversations I've had with very intelligent people, I've mentioned these experiments, and it's as if they hadn't heard of them before. And so think of this as kind of a reminder, or like I like to say, a deminder. So we can use this work to go to what I think is really the next step in human evolution, which is becoming aware of the mind program. And that's what Jane Elliot was able to do. She was able to show how easy it is to turn on this program. So what she did in her class is, Martin Luther King had just been assassinated. And her third graders were really confused about this because he was the hero of the month for the class, and it didn't make any sense. And so she wanted to show the class how easy it is to discriminate. And so she came up with an experiment where she walked in one day and she just picked a variable, eye color. And she told the class that it's the blue-eyed kids that are smarter and better than the brown-eyed kids. And then she would give the blue-eyed kids some extra privileges, like staying outside longer for recess. And then the next day, and again, the wonderful thing about her insight is she was able to show how arbitrary and whimsical the mind is, because she came in the next day and switched it on them. And she said, no, it's actually the brown-eyed kids that are smarter, and then gave them extra privileges. And so she was able to turn on the switch and then change the variable very quickly. And just to read a quote from what she found, she said, I watched what had been marvelous, cooperative, wonderful, thoughtful kids turn into nasty, vicious, discriminatory third graders in the course of 15 minutes. And it's such a powerful experiment. And the fascinating thing about these experiments, so when we look at all, like with Milgram studies and obedience and the conformity studies, and we look at all these and we say, oh, these are all really unethical. And that is also kind of interesting, that all these studies that show us the nature of, not of who we are, I don't think this is who we are, but it's something we carry around. So it's not human nature, because I think this program is actually pretty recent, but it does show the baggage that we're carrying around. And if we identify with it, then it can become who we are. And again, this shows the power of the thinking mind, because its capacity to use categorization, which again I think is going to be a huge part of this next step in human evolution, when we really understand what categorization is. And so, I mean, we could pick any variable. We could pick shoe size, and then maybe people with size 12 shoes and versus size 10, or you could, and then. But the fascinating thing about categorization is that it really is an abstraction, because it collapses across physical reality. And so you could take people who all say wear size 12 shoes, and if you really look at their feet, they're all absolutely unique and different. So we're collapsing across all these individual differences, and we're creating an abstract mental box that we're putting them in. And of course, the interesting thing about these mental boxes is that they only exist in the mind itself. And we talked about this. I've talked about it in my videos about eye color. The color exists nowhere else except in the mind, in experience. And so even some of these variables have no physicality to them. And we see this through human history. Human beings get divided in different ways. I mean, Marxism, human beings get divided on whether they are those that own the means of production or those that only have their labor to sell. And so, you could take a look at so many different forms that this categorization takes, but it's only the content that's different. The underlying mechanisms themselves, it's absolutely the same. It's taking categorization, it's creating us versus them groups, and then it creates conflict in the sense that we must, the us must be victorious over the them. And you see that story, that narrative, that just playing over and over again in human history. And that's what Jane Elliot was able to show with her third graders. And she was able to show how fast and easy it was to go into a room and flick on the mind program, to just turn it on and then watch it take its course and watch the consequences. So the next stage in human evolution is to wake up, to become aware of the mind program, and to become aware of its categorical nature, and how easy it creates us versus them groups, and to realize that none of it's who we are, none of it's human nature. And when we recognize this, then we can absolutely transcend that mind program.